back-to-back meetings, unnecessary meetings. I don't think there's a lack of motivation. Honestly, what I've noticed over the last 5 years is there's a lack of attention. It's chaos.
Yeah.
So if someone's listening to this now, or what do you get paid for at work?
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Transform Yourself podcast. Today I'm joined by Matt Marney. Matt has worked in health, well-being and movement as well as behavioural change in the space for over 2 decades, helping individuals, organizations and leadership teams better understand the relationship between performance, health and human behaviour. His work focuses on helping individuals, leaders create healthier, higher performing workspace cultures while improving their well-being and capacity to lead. Now, this conversation in particular is going to be relevant because many people listening to this podcast are very ambitious. They're aiming to build their bodies, build their business, they grow in their careers. Many of them are also leading by an example, leading teams while still trying to provide for their families, while still trying to stay focused, be present, parents, partners, as well as friends, and actually develop further relationships. Yet, somewhere along the way, they find themselves sacrificing the very things that support their success in the first place. Exercise becomes inconsistent, sleep suffers, stress levels go up, and they start neglecting the very benefit of staying content. Despite knowing what they should do, they struggle. They actually don't do it. And that is what we're going to be discussing today with Matt. We are going to explore why this happens and what is the hidden cost of ambition and how behavior change really works and what practical strategies people like you can use to build success without sacrificing your health, relationships and well-being. So Matt, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, it's an honor to be here, Christian. How are you?
I'm great. It was nice chatting to you. And I think the last time we had a conversation together, a one-on-one over the podcast, was probably COVID time.
It was. And actually we realised that it was the first time we'd met in the flesh.
Yeah, exactly. And we also spoke about that's the power of social media. Yeah. You kind of feel like you know people. And it's only when you meet them in person you realize, actually, I don't think we've ever met. So thank you for coming in.
No, my pleasure.
I really appreciate it.
What a lovely setup.
It's great, right?
It looks very professional. We've got the help behind the camera. We've got a very professional man there. Very good.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, obviously, we've been doing this the last couple of months. I did actually do the podcast many years ago, and that was over a Zoom, and that was very beneficial. We got some really good recordings, probably from 3 or 4 years ago. That probably after this, we're going to revamp and polish a bit better, because one of the benefits of having conversations, like I said to you, with people very busy and got a lot going on, is the fact of, I was having a conversation with Ben Pakulski many years ago, and I was saying, I just don't read as often as I would like anymore. And that used to be a good opportunity to me to uptake more information. Mm-hmm. And he said, listen, I don't read anything, but if I want to learn something, I just have a podcast, we interview them for an hour, and I uptake that information. And then I teach it. So thanks for coming in. Obviously, you've worked in the space for 20 years. You've helped leading professionals. You've helped people kind of stay in a well-being state. What I want to ask is, first of all, when was the time, or what was the time when you realized the benefit yourself from actually controlling your contentment and keeping yourself under control, and what encouraged you to teach other people how to do that?
That's a big question. As you say, I've been doing this a long time, and the work I do today is a culmination of lived experience. So in my early 20s, I worked in the corporate space. So I worked for a large advertising agency. I wanted to achieve, I wanted to do well, I was working hard, and like, long story short, I burned out. I was in a mental health crisis, I suppose. I was in a dark place. And on my final day of this agency, I was stood at a Holborn tube station, standing on the platform, contemplating throwing myself in front of the next train. Now, I don't say that for sympathy or shock value. I'm sharing that because this is where this stuff can take us. It's serious stuff. And, I'd love to say, that I stepped out of corporate, went into fitness, job done. It was like, no, there was a continuous battle. I kind of left that advertising agency. I slipped into alcoholism, addiction. I was in a dark spot, 2 suicide attempts. So I've been on a bit of a journey over the last 24 years. And everything I teach today, I go into organizations or work with individuals, it's stuff I've tried and tested myself. It's kind of, it's not just from a book, it's stuff I've had to implement. And people will sort of see me, Christian, and they'll say, oh, there's Matt, the meditation teacher, or Matt, the fitness consultant, or the wellbeing consultant. It's like, what they don't see is the 20 years that I've been working on myself and trying things and finding things that didn't work, did work. And I've kind of arrived at this spot now where I go into organizations, I work with individuals, and I suppose I'm trying to support organizations to support their individuals, but also help individuals not have to experience what I went through.
Well, first of all, thanks for sharing that. And it's, again, I know you're not doing it for sympathy, you're doing it because it's part of your journey, right?
Yeah.
And I think being a performance coach, a personal trainer, whatever title you want to give me, it comes from my own experience as well, right? You realize how benefit exercise is and nutrition and setting goals and achieving them. And you want to help other people do that. You wish more people were more passionate about taking care of themselves because you realize how benefiting it would be. So one of the other reasons I wanted to get you in particular, no, probably the main reason is, I understand this as well. I got many clients in corporate who are kind of working hard and so forth, and not just women, but the majority of the space is men, right? And what I know from being a man and being a father, being a husband, being a very high performing individual, is that, a lot of men suffer in silence. Whether it's through cultural teaching of you not allowed to express yourself, a lot of men are the sole provider or most breadwinners. You're trying to balance family time, work career, platforms, paychecks. And within that space of yourself, it's very understandable how somebody might get in the position you just expressed, where they feel so overwhelmed. They feel, stuck in a position where they feel almost entrapped from where they are, and they suffer in silence. So I want to give you a voice. I want to speak to the people who are in them positions and try to encourage them to kind of do the things that they can do to help themselves, not just grow in their career, but actually grow in a conscious awareness that, we have control over everything that we want. So what has been the biggest kind of lessons working in this space? Because you have to, in order to change, you have to want to change, right? So what has been the biggest, light bulb moments you've had from helping individuals get more clarity, improve their well-being?
Yeah, it's a big question. I think you were describing this sense of overwhelm. I don't think there's a lack of motivation. I don't see that. People are not struggling for motivation. Men are not struggling. They want to get in shape. They want to provide. They want to get on in their career. Honestly, what I've noticed over the last 5 years is there's a lack of attention. Genuinely. Focus and attention is shot to bits. We were talking outside and you were talking about the ability, you just mentioned the ability to read books.
Yeah.
That for me is one of the biggest problems that men face.
Yeah.
They're overwhelmed, but nobody can stay on task.
Yeah, it's tough. It's overwhelming, right?
Yeah. It is. It's one of the key challenges that people are facing.
Yeah.
So if you take the modern workspace, right? So we're talking about career, gym stuff aside, people are struggling to find the time quite often. Yeah. 2010, the knowledge sector, which is most work now, is knowledge sector work. Sat in front of a desk, cognitive function, that's the asset to the organization. 2010, smartphones come along, right? So now you're emailing. Do you know what I mean? You're emailing on the tube. All of a sudden, cognitive load goes up. 2020, Christian, work changed. Everyone went home. Everyone learned to work from home. And I genuinely see it now. That hasn't changed. So people are struggling to manage stuff, and the work dynamics changed. Like this never off culture, never switching off.
Yeah.
People checking their emails at 10:30 at night, jacked up on cortisol and adrenaline before they go to bed to try to recover from the training or get that sleep that they need for emotional resilience, which is going to help them cope the next day. And one of the biggest challenges I see is I go into modern workplaces, it's chaos.
Yeah.
There's constant Slack messages, emails, a phone sitting on your desk, meetings galore.
Yeah.
Nobody can stay on task. Nobody's getting anything done. Everyone's bringing work home. Work comes home. That causes stress at home. Vicious cycle. So it sounds like a really simple concept, but I've been working with a lot of C-suite and senior leaders now on their ability to improve their focus and attention.
Yeah, it seems so simple. And I think one of the, well, just from an observation perspective, not just from other people, but also, we're all flawed, right? So we recognize things in ourselves. And sometimes, one of the greatest benefits of being an influencer or teacher or coach or, educator is you get to listen to your own words sometimes. And sometimes you need to. I could tell you to do something. As I'm telling you, I'm like, well, don't be an hypocrite. If you're advising them to do one thing, one of the best things I think about being a father in particular is you're aware also always that you're a role model. So I'm teaching my son a lesson. At the same time I'm teaching, I'm like, okay, remind yourself of this lesson you're teaching that you should be kind and forgiving and you should be calm and you shouldn't, let your emotions control you. So because we know this, and many people know that they need to take some time out, might need to do some breath work or whatever it is, all these things feel like something else on top of something else,
Yeah.
What do you think the biggest reason that people that know this information, okay, which a lot of people you work with, senior executives, same as me, they know it. What is the biggest challenge they have to actually comply to doing what they know they need to do?
Yeah, it's a tough question. Human psychology. I mean, we all know instantly. You go on Instagram today, and you can 1,000,001 different ways to eat, macronutrient breakdown, the value of exercise. I think it's this cognitive overwhelm, this bandwidth that's being tested, it's being stretched. As if we talk about the finite amount of willpower that we all have, so we have to solidify habits.
Yeah.
So I think, without going into too much detail about the science, but when you're overwhelmed and you're psychologically stressed from work and you're juggling things, your physiology changes, right? Cortisol, adrenaline, glucose jacks up. That impacts cognition. Then that impacts your ability to think, make decisions, executive function. It's a question, actually, I throw out to most senior teams. So when I'm trying to persuade a group of execs that maybe they should allow their staff to go out on a walk at lunchtime or use the stairs. And people hear that, Kristen, and they're like,
It sounds so stupid. Now is that going to improve
yeah.
anything?
Behave, Matt. Go away. We've got money to earn, by the way. We've got a bottom line. I've got pressure from the board. This is the CEO. Got the board above them. I've got a senior team below me.
Yeah.
I've got to perform. So what I do is I throw this question out to senior teams. When I'm trying to get an individual or a group to buy into this stuff that we talk about. So the question I throw out is I go, what do you pay your staff for? So if someone's listening to this now, or what do you get paid for at work?
A performance outcome.
Often people say that might be marketing, numbers, revenue. It's like, yeah, okay, that's part of it, but you get paid for your ability to think. Cognitive function is the asset to the organization. So the analogy I use is, I don't know, a sporting analogy. Cristiano Ronaldo, right? He's still at it in Saudi and he's still playing in Saudi. So Cristiano, when he comes off the pitch, right, and he's playing in Saudi, he's performed, but he scored 2 goals with his head. Cristiano does not get sent to the gym to train for 6 hours.
Yeah.
Gets in a car, he's a driver, he takes him home, he eats, he has a massage and he sleeps, right? And he probably bowls into training at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Why? Because Cristiano's asset to the organisation is his physical well-being, right? So when you can get people to understand that the asset for the organisation, what you pay your staff for is cognitive function, once they get that, then you start to explain why sleep, stress management, walking, exercise, time with your family, switching off at home are all valuable. They're not nice twos. They're looking after the asset, and the asset is cognitive function. When you are stressed, you are amygdala. You are in fight or flight. There is no space for philosophy or poetry or critical thinking when you're in a stressed state. And so we're in a stressed state at work. We're trying to perform. Cognitive function shot to bits, and it's a vicious cycle. So in a way, this is how I like to frame it for people, to get them to understand what the asset is. And then there's more of a why, more of a buy-in as to why going for a walk at lunchtime might help your team perform better and might affect the bottom line at the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I use a very similar analogy because obviously, whether it's performance of any sort, cognitive or physical, you want the best outcome, right? So I always relate, and I was always shocked when I started working with like high-level executives, very career-driven and very intelligent, of like how little focus went into recovery. And I always use the analogy of like professional players. It's like they are doing this work, they need to perform, they need to recover, and you do as well with your mind, right? So for you to be the best you can be at that, you need your recovery, you need your sleep, etc., etc. And they just don't buy into it, and it sounds ridiculous to me because it's obvious. Like, you know, if you were running all the way through the night, very little sleep, coffee all day long, adenosine kind of build up, it's not clearing, your cortisol levels are high, how are you going to get the best out of yourself? Now I'm talking about individuals, not, you know, trying to convince the corporation itself. Because, but even individuals, I was always, and I'm always surprised how, I say to some clients, I say, okay, what do you think the most stressful job in the world is right now? Or just the stressful job? They would say something like market, whatever. I would say, look at a Formula One driver. Like, there's nothing more intense than Formula One. They're driving a car as fast as they can, you know, into the corner. And the kind of argument will be, yeah, but they kind of either doing what they love, or the fact that, listen, they're getting dragged on planes, they're flying everywhere, they're getting press conference, they're dealing with life. Now, their coaches primarily focus on, because most of them have been doing it since a kid, like very young, the skill is there. What do they focus on? Recovery, sleep, hacks, nutrition, mindset. How can I get this person the most amount, how can I get the best amount of rest so I can get the performance, the most out of it? So that is always going to be the challenge. And again, what I find myself doing, myself also, I have my own principles that I use. Like, for example, I have no phone in the first hour of being awake, and sometimes hours. You know, I won't look at the phone. The phone is off. At night, it doesn't go on until at least 1 hour of me being awake, at least. But what I find myself doing is, if I haven't had a good sleep, I got a son, sometimes we just don't. You know, he's up through the night maybe. I find myself then leaning into these stimulants, right? And I'm not talking about coffee or whatever. I'm talking about, like, my phone becomes a stimulant.
100%.
So what I then do is I catch myself in this habit of, now I'm tired, and rather than me drive to the gym listening to even nothing, or just the sound, or some sort of like calming, I'm just thinking and clearing my head, I'm like listening to something, like even if it's like an argument online, a debate, something that's going to drive me up. And it's the same thing we see with caffeine, with sugar, they're all stimulants, right? So back to your point is, we need to, in order to increase our focus, we need to create more attention space. So do you got the pressures of the corporation, do you attribute a lot of that to the fact of where we live right now with social media, with digital devices, with flashy things in front of us?
Yeah, and I think we're all struggling, not just men in positions within organisations. I think I do work in schools. I mean, it's hideous what this experiment we've decided to run with young people. It infuriates me. That's a different topic. But going back to what you said about men running all night and cortisol and adrenaline. So you mentioned earlier about men not really having the ability to open up. We've been accused of it for years. You know, men should talk more. This is the mantra, you know, because men have been struggling since the 60s. 3 out of 4 suicides are men. Like, mental health and men and suicide, it's a thing. It's not a modern thing. It's been going on for a long time. It's the way we are. We're told we need to share more, but, you know, men provide. Men solve problems. vulnerability wasn't really a trait you wanted to be sort of displaying back in the day, hunter-gatherers, when there were wild tribes around that might come and
Well,
take your village. You know, this is, we're no different. This is what we are.
Yeah.
So we problem solve, and opening up can seem vulnerable. It can be a sign of weakness. And I think with work can be addictive. Achievement can be addictive. So emails, cortisol, adrenaline. I've worked with quite a few workaholics. You know, busyness. We all know this. Busyness. Boredom's gone. It's absolutely gone. You know, you don't have to sit and be in the default mode network and mind wander, which, by the way, is very helpful in getting the meditation background here. You don't have to do it. You're standing in Costa waiting for your coffee, whip the phone out. Go to the toilet, pick your phone up. So I think, as you said, we are constantly running. It's when we're running on work, and the guys that achieve and get to the top, the C-suite type characters, speak to most CEOs. There's a personality type. If you climb the tree of an organization and you want to be the boy at the top, or the girl, there has to be a certain work ethic. And I think we have to accept this as well. I think people are being told, you need to do this, you need to do that. It's like, we want these people make it into the boardroom. These people make it into the C-suite because they're driven that way. I'm sure someone like yourself, you're driven and you want to achieve. Now, if you're not doing the stuff, it affects your well-being. So I think personality types are a thing, type A personalities. What we can do, I think, with individuals like this is give them the education. Because most of them are about self-improvement. But if you can explain, in a way, educate them around these lifestyle fluffy things, but allow them to understand that if you do this, the outcome is that, i.e. better performance at work, I think then you maybe get people to buy in. Some individuals will never stop. Why? Well, if it's not broke, don't fix it. What are you telling me to go to sleep at 10 o'clock for, Matt? Do you earn what I earn? Have you run companies like me? It's just sometimes you've just got to back off. But I think we have to find balance. But with individuals like this, I think helping them understand performance, how it's going to help them perform at work, is definitely a buy-in for those.
Yeah, and going back to what you said about Cristiano Ronaldo, he would probably love football more than most people. And he would do nothing better than in the gym and doing this. And that recovery, he said, that ice bath, that massage, that nap, whatever, he's not doing it because he enjoys it. He's doing it because he wants to perform even better. Yeah. So it's like, and you know, I work with a lot of senior executives. What I find is that the top level and tiers don't understand this because you don't get, you reach a limit on you until you start tapping into that. It's the people kind of either striving for it and looking up at what other people are doing, or realizing they could do more and they're not doing enough. And like you said, one of the things that is the biggest distraction, which when you were saying this, I thought, oh my gosh, where are we heading? Because technology is going to get even more invasive, for sure. We're going to be connected to it rather than be on there or in there. It's going to be connected. And the only way then to minimize these emotions and chemicals that we're addicted to getting released is kind of to change the gene itself so it doesn't get stimulated by that. And then what do we become? That's another conversation, but that's really frightening, you know. So it's really scary. But going back to what you said, you know, being a high performing individual, I've certainly seen that. You know, my son has given me an opportunity to be present, you know, because I have to be. Before I had a son, I was like, I'd work every minute of being awake. And no joke, and I kid you not, everything in my life is still structured now. But if people know me now and they think I'm structured and disciplined and ordered, if you knew me 5 years ago, you know, this is a guy who would go to the toilet every morning at 10 a.m. And for 10 minutes on the toilet, I would be doing something specific that would lead to the goal I wanted to do. So I'd be writing something that would be structured in my calendar. Every 5 minutes of the day was booked up, and very little time at the time was spent on, well, I guess meditation was part of it because I learned quite some time before that, the benefits of that. But everything was really meticulous. So my son has given me that time to be present. And for a lot of people, it's difficult to convince them, isn't it? because like I said, when the adrenaline's up, you might know that you need to be relaxed or bring in some breath work or meditation or go for a walk, but even doing that, the thoughts could come in of like, send that email, do this, check it, follow up. And it's just a cycle of just consistent spiking. I used to be aware of, I would walk into a room at some points and I would be looking for things I knew were going to stimulate my adrenaline. Like, what can I find wrong? And I was like, man, you start to get addicted to this stimulant. Like, I'd think, okay, a walk here, and it wasn't anxiety, like, and I'd be looking for something that somebody has done wrong. And it was nothing to do with them. It was because that stimulant would give me that dump of adrenaline, and I was becoming addicted to it. So what are some of the daily practices that people can do? I know you mentioned mindful walking. I call it mindful driving. Walking, spending some time with the family. What would be practical hacks that people can bring in, like from tomorrow, that can have, if they can, some sort of exponential improvement to how they feel?
Yeah, one simple change, and people hear this, and it's the whole adage of like, everyone's heard it, do they implement it? Go to bed at the same time every night. I like people, like when I tell them I go to bed at 10 o'clock every night, it's a non-negotiable. If I go out at the weekend and we've got dinner plans and it's past 10:30, people laugh. But it's like, Matt, you tired? I'm like, I'm not happy about this.
Yeah.
But genuinely,
Yeah.
go to bed at the same time every night, get up at the same time every day. One thing, stop looking at your phone. But that is where I would start people.
Yeah.
Of course, there's movement and it is person specific. Some people might be training and going to the gym, but actually the intensity is all wrong. They're smashing high rocks 5 times a week, running on coffee, type A personality. I'm getting into the weeds here about intensity of exercise, but
Please, yeah.
if one person is going to make one change, it's like, if you're not going to bed at the same time every night and getting up at the same time every day, try it for a few months. That's what I would start with. It's like, that's where all the recovery takes place. That's it. It's those hours when you're asleep. And then after that, if someone's sedentary, try and walk more. Try and bump your steps up to, I don't know. Have you heard of the term the active couch potato?
No, I don't
Right,
think
so most of your desk jockeys, you'll see it all the time. Matt, I go to the gym at lunchtime and smash it. Yeah, you sit down and do chest press. You don't really move. You're doing 5,000 steps a day, mate. You're sedentary. What do you mean I'm sedentary? I go to the gym. You're still sedentary.
Yeah, of course.
You're still at risk of chronic conditions.
Yeah.
Move more. Ain't got time. What do you mean you ain't got time? Go out for a walk at lunchtime. It's like, I haven't got time to do that. Well, if you can't go out for a walk at lunchtime, something's going wrong with the way you're organising your work. What do you mean? Well, your phone's out, you've got Slack, you're talking to your mate every 5 minutes. This is the chaos in the workplace. Yeah. I'm going off on a tangent, but I'll come back. Sleep.
Well, I think it's the chaos of life where we are, because you come home and for a lot of people, they come from that.
Yeah.
And they need to recover. And then with kids and stuff at home, and it's never ending, right?
Yeah, and I honestly think it's really difficult for individuals, because you go home as well. I know I haven't got kids, but you go home, you walk into a family who've got iPads and phones, and oh my God, it drives parents nuts. It's one of the biggest headaches that parents have got teenagers, like this thing, technology. So the home life is one thing, looking after your own well-being. But this is where, I don't want to creep into the corporate stuff, but this is where I think cultural changes within organisations can really help. So if you're a leader in an organisation, you're a high performer, you're sitting in the C-suite or you're on a board or whatever, yes, take care of yourself, but people need help in the workplace. And we can't just leave it down to personal responsibility. Get on with it. You're going up against these tech firms. We haven't got a chance. You're staring at your phone. There's thousands of engineers the other side hacking your primitive little brain, which is stuck back in the 16th century, on a farm. No chance. This is why I think policies and procedures within organisations can really help. Like, let's not have phones on the desk. Let's have periods blocked out where focused work can take place. Let's stop the incessant email backwards and forwards. Are you familiar with the concept switch cost?
Yeah.
Yeah, so people don't know, you're on task, you answer an email, 25 minutes to get back to the level of focus. You're never really there, because once you open up a debate with an email, the guy happens to be sitting across the office as well, he's upstairs. Crazy, Chris. We're all addicted.
Yeah.
Meetings, back-to-back meetings, unnecessary meetings. Like, as I said to you before, since 2020, work has just become this minefield. No one can seem to sort it out. I sit with senior teams. We try and talk about stuff like right to disconnect, right? In France and in Australia, it's law. So right to disconnect basically means staff have permission to stop looking at emails after a certain time. Why? Because they finish work. They shouldn't be looking at it because they're staying jacked up. It's crazy. One person in your team, you're in a team, right? And there's competition for jobs now. The AI tsunami's on its way. There's job scarcity. There's all this stuff going on. But you've got one guy in your department who's banging out emails at 11 o'clock or responding to the boss who's just firing off an email at 11:30. Guess what? If he's responding and you're not, it's going to create anxiety. So sometimes having rules around stuff, let people go on holiday. I'm going on holiday for 2 weeks. Like in the 1980s, you get in your car, wouldn't you? Go to your caravan site for 2 weeks. Yeah, I'm done from work. Yeah. It never leaves people. It's hideous. So personal responsibility, sleep, walk a bit more. Yeah, try and structure work. But a more macro level with organisations, sit down, talk, and then the key for it to work is the guys at the top, the ones we're talking about, they need to model these behaviours. Because if they're not, if they're still pinging off emails at lunchtime or weekends, it doesn't work.
Yeah, one of the other things that kind of came to mind when you said that is two things really. Well, many things, but two things I wanted to touch on. You can't always fight fire with fire. So when people are stressed, a lot of people that come to me, actually, a big part of the workout is to manage their stress. That's what they use, right? So they feel stressed and and then they feel better because now they're just exhausted. They're not relaxed, they're just exhausted, right? But then it's another stressor, right?
Yeah.
So you know, and people like this struggle to take any time out at all from anything. That's number one. And what I recognized when I had my surgery in January or end of December is I did my surgery. I was like, right, I'm going to go to the gym every single day and do what I can, 30 minutes, because I'm going to be sitting at home every day. So I got a little e-bike, go to the gym, do something, and come back. And then after 2 weeks, I kind of had a bit of a pec tear just on my crutches. It's like, what? It was like the universe said, just sit down, boy.
So you tore your pec?
Not completely, but what happened is, it was like, I went for really...
Wow.
This year has been so many lessons. Right?
Yeah.
So I had my surgery.
Yeah.
First of all, my surgery, I needed surgery. I'm going to tell the story, right?
Yeah.
It's a good one. So I had an issue with my foot, but I was racing for a team. I was teaching level 4 strength and conditioning. I was training people. I had loads of stuff going on. So I was like, okay, I'll just try to ice it, rest it in the time that I'm resting, which was not a lot. But I'm carrying this injury. So after a couple of weeks, when I knew it was clear, but before that time, I had a cycling crash. So I was like, right, okay, let's go and see what's going on with my foot, because I was doing physio and so forth and nothing was happening. Turned out I had 2 fractures in my foot.
What?
I had a kind of a bone cyst in my calcaneus, which was causing the weakness in the joint. And luckily, the foot didn't collapse. The cycling crash gave me a broken rib, rotator cuff. So it was like I was like, right, now I need to rest. So I did the surgery.
On the foot?
On the foot, because my shoulder was, I broke my rib. So I was like, I need to rest anyway. So let's take 3 weeks rest or 6 weeks. Now's the time to do it. So then I was like, right, I'm in the gym, getting up every morning, 5 a.m., trying to keep some sort of structure. And then I would work all day on the laptop. 2 days in, I'm having a tea with the wife at the coffee shop. And I'm walking back on my crutch. I'm like,
Mate.
what the hell? So and then the doctor's like, okay, no putting any weight on it for a week. So that means for like a week or a couple of, at least 4 days, I was just stuck like this, peeing in a bottle. So anyway, right, I was like, I really have the desire to go to the gym, although there's no way I can go. So I was like, okay, Christian, where is the real problems in your life that you're ignoring? Because you're tiring yourself out. If you need the gym to feel happy, that means you are not happy. So why ain't you happy? And then I started assessing, okay, where's my finances? Where's my career? Where's my relationship? Where's my friendships? Where's my social? What type of balance do I have in my life? Where is the crack that's really causing the problem? I'm feeling like I need exercise just to feel normal or good. So that was what I recognized. And I see the trends in a lot of people where they want to do something, they're thinking a lot, but actually to analyze what the core problem is, the time that they would be doing it, they're either filling it with exercise, or they would be flicking on their phone, or they would be watching something, because that's giving them a break away from what they're doing. But that's just like somebody being in this room right now, which is full of smoke, and going, oh, I'm going to take a break for this, I'm going to go outside and have a fag. You'd be like, no, if you need a break from the smoke, you should be outside getting some fresh air.
Yeah.
So with this, again, I guess you can always go back to trying to educate people on the benefits of doing what they need to do for performance standpoint. But you can see this a lot where people are just really struggling to tap into that parasympathetic state where they can actually rest and digest.
Yeah, I mean, change is hard. Any change. I think you have to be honest about that. Most people, because of the modern world as well, you can be busy. Change is hard. Knowing what's going on within yourself that's also not easy. So I've been sober now for 19 years, right? I took my last drink 19 years ago, and I'm in recovery, and I learned very early on in recovery, if you want to know why you drank, stop drinking, right? So I drank alcoholically for years, right? It was a crutch. Arrested development, okay? Matt did not mature beyond the age of 13. His first few cans of super tenants in a park in southwest London. So the journey began.
Love the name, super tenants.
Super tenants, well, yeah. Anyone in the UK, lovely. But I put the drink down, I came into recovery, and honestly, Christian, first 5 years of my recovery was a roller coaster. It was up and down like a yo-yo. I had emotional rock bottoms, anxiety, depression, without booze. I'm sober. Scary. I would always put that sticking plaster on. I'd have to drink. I didn't have to face these things. And it took time sitting with my feelings, time in recovery, exploration, self-help, therapy. It took a while for me to kind of recognize what these feelings were, put a label on them. Oh, that's fear. Yeah. That's self-pity. That's anger. Honestly, Christian, I didn't have a clue. I'll share a story with you, right? I was 3 years sober and I got in my first relationship, right? 3 years sober. And so, I've not been in a relationship. I'd never just been me in a relationship. And my ex got up and went to work one morning, and I sat up in bed, and it was like all these character defects just ran out from underneath the bed. Like low self-esteem, lack of self-worth, all this stuff. It's painful and it's hard to look at. It is the key to growth.
Yeah.
It is the key to growth, but it's not easy. And I was forced to do it. I got sober. I had no choice. It's like, well, I can't hide behind booze and drugs anymore. I've got to face this stuff. But it is possible for men. And in a way, we talk about men talking. I think therapy can be useful. It's not for everyone. And there's a really interesting statistic about men who actually do take their life. When they look back, they have sought out the services that they're supposed to. But this is where I think there are a lot more organisations now. There's an organisation in the UK I work for. I'm going to go back and work for Men Speak. It's online groups, communities where we sit and we share. There's topics. So I think stuff has changed. So men can sit and chat and discuss feelings is important. But it's not easy. And sitting with yourself can be quite scary.
Yeah, I mean, some people they don't even want to look in the mirror. They don't even accept themselves who they are. And I think that's at the bottom of it all. I think that's where it comes from, is acceptance. Well, part of it is like, whether they've been neglected from that type of acceptance that they craved as a child, or even with themselves. But a lot of it, people don't even want to see some of the problems they have. They'd rather ignore them. Now, let's say, for example, you have somebody, okay, that is is aware of all these things and is applying them. And by all these things, I mean, hacks that we can do to improve our well-being.
Yeah.
Okay. But some people, they're in a position and they want to get a different job, so they're studying outside of that, and time is getting squeezed, right? So they might know what they need to do, and they might be doing it to some degree, but they are still overwhelmed with the amount of things they have to do, right? Whether that's working late because they have to, because let's say, for example, they work until 6, but then they're doing something as a side to kind of get out what they're not happy with. Exercising because they feel like they want to take control. Family, they're doing a lot of it, but they're still feeling in this stress state and overwhelmed. What would be some of the simple tactics that they could, or not simple tactics, because let's assume they're doing them. What if they're doing all these things, but they are still in that position where, would you say this, can I just, before you answer the question, sometimes we have to accept the time we put in and be respectful of the expectations, what it's going to lead to, right? So if, for example, I work with a client and they want to achieve this and achieve that, but it's like, look, you can't train more than 3 days a week in the gym. You can try it, but it's going to crash probably at 3 weeks. So we need to come up with a system that's realistic and predictable, but the predictions might not be matching your expectations. So with that type of people who are doing a lot, but they're cooking themselves, what would you say?
Yeah, it's definitely not, it's not simple. Now, I'm just going to preface this by saying meditation and spirituality is often looked at as fluff. All right, so I'll put that in there first, and if this makes your eyebrows raise, that's fine. Do the basic stuff. We have about 60,000 thoughts a day, right? And most people are not aware of any awareness of these thoughts, right? So my meditation teacher says to me, what you pay attention to and how, that's your life. Right? And I was on retreat one year when he said that, and it just blew my mind. So perception, your perception of the world is shaped by your patterns of thinking, the things you pay attention to. So expectation, that's something that you just gave there. Dissatisfaction, yeah? And then it leans into, this is where people switch out, but gratitude and appreciation, there's skills. Some people, there are people in your life, right, who are just happy with their lot. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just doesn't matter. He's got his job wherever back home, happy with his lot. People often look at these people and they go, oh my God, it's just the way he is. It's like, yeah, it's just the way it is, but there are ingredients to that.
Yeah.
These are skills. Now, I've learned this firsthand. Right? I had no idea about any of this stuff. When I was out in the madness and I was drinking and drugging, I was just charging around, self-will, running the game. The house of cards fell down, right? And I was faced with this reality. First 5 years of my recovery, scary as hell. Matt's expectations, compare and despair. I should have this, I should be doing that. I'm comparing myself to people. How did I feel? Rubbish.
Yeah,
Anxiety, depression, yeah. Then I found meditation, right? Meditation, lots of different styles. In the modern world, with this attention crisis, concentration-based is not a bad place for most people to start, right? Yeah. Start there. Improve focus and attention, maybe apply it to work. But when you improve your focus and attention, you can lean into different styles of meditation. This is what people don't realise. They just sit down, close your eyes. I can't, my mind's wandered. I can't meditate. It's rubbish, right? There's a lot. I mean, I'm doing 16 days silent retreat in a few weeks. I do it every year. This stuff is...
You get a break from the wife.
Yeah, you do. And from phones. But you've got particular styles of meditation. So everyone's heard of gratitude practices, but you've got this lovely little box called mudita. It's wonderful, Christian. You lift it up, and inside there you've got gratitude, appreciative joy, sympathetic joy. These are styles of meditation, right? So gratitude, yeah, be grateful. Use your imagination. Change your state. You spoke earlier about cortisol and adrenaline. So physiology drives neurology. They're connected, yeah? When you live in a sense of state and lack, this fight or flight chemical that's in your body, your cells in your body become addicted. They start to drive neurology. So you become more miserable, more dissatisfied. But if you use something like gratitude practice, you change your state, it changes your neurology. It's a skill. Appreciation kind of ties in. Appreciative joy. Sympathetic joy. That's a skill of taking joy in other people's success, right? If you can get a bit of that in your life, it's wonderful, right? Now, I'm not asking everyone to go out and sit there and be grateful. These are skills, but it's available. And all I can tell you is my experience, right? I kid you not, I practice this stuff regularly, and I do it because it's changed my lens on the world. It's changed my lens on the world. I'll go to the shops, right? I'll just go to my missus, do you want anything over the road? I'll go over the shop, I'll see a fluffy little dog, right? And a small child interacting with their parent. My heart explodes, right? And I'm like, the world is different. I see the world differently. So anyway, long-winded way of saying, you can change this stuff. You can't change it overnight, but there are practices. If meditation and going down that line isn't the way, do some CBT. Reframe stuff. Skill. The way you interact with your patterns of thinking, it's a skill. The language you use with people, it's a skill. So you can change, but it goes back to what I said before. Change is hard, and people haven't got the time because they're too busy staring at TikTok to do anything.
Yeah. And if you want to change, you have to be willing to change. So to see change, you have to change. I know it sounds very silly to say. You know, some of the things that I've done and still do, like when I used to have our space, our PT studio, and it was set up, open plan, so I was trying to work and there was a lot of things going on. I found myself, you know, very overwhelmed in the space because I'd either have to be answering things here or... So what I used to do then is I would, every time I went to the toilet, which was, you know, probably around 500 meters away, I would not take my phone and I would just be mindful. I would open the doorknob and feel the doorknob. I would wash my hands and I would look at my fingers and think, I'd just pay attention to the things around me. So that was a really good hack, which is you don't need any more time for that. Every time you go to the toilet, you could just leave your phone and you could just say hi to everyone you meet. Pay attention to the people there. The things I do now that are rituals, and I do them for the same reasons, is first thing, I start my day always, again, no phone, there's a rule, no phone, no data on. I've even turned up to appointments and people have cancelled, but I'm not willing to look at my phone before that time because I'm like, first of all, I don't want to be an hypocrite. I don't want to tell you to do something I'm not doing. Yeah. Secondly, I want to deal with myself before I deal with the world. I want to make sure I'm in check. So I don't look at the phone. I have a staircase in my house that on the way down the stairs, I pray every day, every morning. And if I'm in an hotel, I do the same thing. Before I leave where I'm at, I pray. It's a gratitude prayer. Thank you for being awake today. Like, you know what I mean? I went to sleep last night. It might have been my last breath. Thank you for being awake. Thank you for giving me all the experience I've had in my life. Thank you for bringing this day to me and all the goodness that's going to come out. And then I set an intention for the day. Today, my intention is to be grateful or to be forgiving or to allow money to flow to me, to allow to receive, whatever. And that intention is miraculous. And then, like I said, what I aim to do, wherever I go out on the bike in the morning or wherever I drive to the gym, I don't listen to anything. And if I do, it's subtle music. There's no lyrics, just music. And then I'm just, again, checking in myself. How am I today? How's it going? How do I feel? What are my thoughts? Thankful again. And then I start my day. You know, I start my day, put my data on, deal with people. So that's one thing I do every single morning. Unless, like I said, I'm exhausted and I find myself looking for hacks. Now, I'm not going to eat sugar. I don't drink coffee. So my hack might be a bit of an adrenaline kick if I'm exhausted. The other thing I do is before bed, like I said, the phone goes off 1 hour or the data goes off, the Wi-Fi goes off. The phone actually is not by the side of the bed, it's away from the bed. So even if I enter the room, that's one thing. And I start preparing for bed. I dim the lights, I try to do what I need to do. And again, before I get into bed, I drop to my knees and I pray. Thank you for the day. Thank you for all the challenges, all the experiences. And then I reflect on my intent. The intention I set in the morning and how fruitful it's been. And I go to sleep. So these are the things I do that help me daily. There was one other thing. I do the meditation when I can. I do the breath work. I do the ice bath. But these things people can do. And it's really not hard to do. You could just fit that into your routine before you start the day, before you end the day. And just have some non-negotiables. Like, and, you know, I come up into the room, sometimes into the bedroom, all the lights on, and I'm like, knock the lights off. I'm like, my wife still isn't getting it. You know, we want me to try to start dimming the lights. Like, I'm working hard to do this, right? So these are the things I think that definitely will have some beneficial effect in people's lives, and they can do them. It is going to take, might find some resistance. You know how hard it is to get, well, you certainly do, to get people to not look on the phone. I'm like, why do you need to check your emails? Dude, if you were still sleeping, you wouldn't check your emails. So nobody knows you're awake at 5 a.m. in the morning. So why are you waking up? You know what I mean? And again, it's just that addiction to that chemical. So anything else you want to give some people advice on?
No, I would just say, I mean, this stressed out, not content, dissatisfied state that we're all running on, there are some basics you can do. Sleep and move, we know that. Eat good food, chuck junk down your neck. But just what you just touched on there, really, just like your perception of the world, being happy with your lot, you are in charge of that. And just piggybacking off the back with the gratitude can be fun. Do it with your family, do it with your kids, do it in the car. We bring it into schools, we call it recognition in the workplace. You can layer this stuff in. Gratitude and appreciation are powerful states. They're not fluffy. If you can actually adopt these states, they are the antidote to self-pity, to jealousy, to envy, which are governing the world. The algorithms, outrage, anger, not happy with my lot. Actually being happy with your lot, it isn't about that stuff. It is an inside job, literally. So, yeah, that's the advice I'd give people.
Let me ask you something personal. What advice, and it's a little bit off topic, but not really, because we mentioned it. I have an addictive personality, but thankfully I'm addicted to the things that are usually beneficial for me. Some of it is habitual. What do you say to somebody, which is very rare in Dubai, but we both come from the UK and it's a lot more common there, is actually addicted to alcohol and addicted to drinking and drugs? And what advice would you give them to help them to kind of get themselves off that?
Well, I mean, the first thing is you have to admit yourself that you have an issue, and then seek help. And seek help can come in many forms. 12-step recovery groups are amazing. They've changed my life, but it's not the only way. There are sober living apps now. There are men's support groups. But if you've got a problem with substances, and it's not easy because it's addiction is a complicated thing. But the first thing is to actually accept and tell someone. It goes back to what we said at the beginning about men, not talking, not hiding. When I was struggling with my mental health and I was working for an advertising agency, there was a cascade of things going on. I was drinking, I was drugging, I wasn't exercising, I wasn't sleeping. Everything was out of whack. I had no connection with my emotions and feeling, and I wasn't telling anyone. And that's the worst thing. So if you are struggling with something, you have to tell someone.
Yeah.
And then you've got the support to then, 12-step recovery, sober coaches. So there is help out there. And if you are struggling with addiction, you're struggling with substances, you've got no chance with the other stuff.
Yeah, of course.
Self-help's not happening under the cloud of addiction.
Yeah, and I just want to jump into this as well, or add this on. If you are addicted to a substance, then definitely seek help, because some addictions to substances can be life-threatening just to kind of come off them, can't they?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Seizures can happen if you're drinking daily and you're drinking huge amounts. So you can seek medical help. It depends where you're at. But anyone struggling with addiction, you've got to firstly acknowledge it, and the way you acknowledge it is by asking for help. I'm going to say 12-step recovery, it changed my life. There's lots of different groups. But the help is available, and unfortunately in the modern world, many different ways that you can find it. So
thank you so much for everything you've given today. The advice on many different areas. It was a great conversation. Lovely to catch up with you after so much time. If anybody's benefited from this and thinks sharing it might be beneficial, please do. It not only helps us, but it might help somebody else. So do that. Subscribe if you haven't done. Comment below on your thoughts. What's resonated? What would you like to hear more of? And we can get more people like Matt into the studio. So Matt, thank you so much.
Thank you, mate. Lovely. Really enjoyed it.
Appreciate it. Thank you too.